Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial.
Word is no stranger to the Mac and iOS platform. The Mac version has been around for over a decade, and Microsoft has been quick to jump on the iOS train. They've made great strides in recent times on both platforms, both in features and reliability, and I'm really excited to guide you through this screencast. In this episode, we'll cover downloading and installing, signing up to Office 365, touring the interface, open, saving and creating new documents, writing and formatting text, formatting the document, working with styles, adding and formatting images. So jump on board and settle in as we look into how to use Word on Mac and iOS. So Microsoft Office, of which Word is a part of, is not available on the Mac App Store, and Word actually comes part of a bundle with Office 365. Now you can purchase the Office products as a one-time deal. So if we scroll down here, you can see a one-time purchase of 199 Australian dollars. Your price will vary depending on your country of origin, but I really recommend that you sign up as part of the Office 365 platform. And if you're a student, you will get a discount on this. And if you want to know what O365 offers you, then you can just click on this link here. I've just done some Googling for Office 365 and it's led me down the rabbit hole to this page here. And then you can decide how you want to pay, per month or per year. O365 offers advantages such as sharing, online capability, and regular updates each year. So once you've decided which package you want to go for or which one you are entitled to, then you can just click on the Buy Now button, follow through the prompts, and it will download a PKG bundle for you to install Office 365, and then you can just follow through with the prompts. You will need a Microsoft account in order to do this, and if you want help on signing up for a Microsoft account, I direct you towards Screencast0725, where I talked about OneNote for Mac and iOS. Once you're signed up and you've downloaded and installed the PKG package, I'll meet you back here.
That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.